Thank you, everyone. Thank you for giving me the chance today to talk about a bit of my PhD project and a bit of the postdoc, like from a perspective from the integrating pest management that we're gonna talk about what it is now. So, wait, can I pass it? Yeah. So as you know, our crops have all kind of threats. We have different herbivore insects, we have fungi, bacteria, and virus that are reducing the yield that we obtain from them, and therefore they are costing like lots of money, and unfortunately they can create hunger in some places. And at the same time, we as consumers, we are asking for having more organic options, some options that are better for the environment and also better for our health. But the yields that are reached nowadays with what we know is they're usually lower. So we cannot reach the same yields if we use only organic options. So there is this kind of middle point, the integrated plant protection or integrated pest management, that basically it tries to know more about how the pathogens work, how the host and the pathogen interaction works, and what the crop needs for a better development. And therefore, we can have like a more specific way to treat our crops, and then we can avoid the loss of yield. So sometimes maybe you will need to use some non-organic options, some chemicals, from some pesticides, some fertilizers, but the idea is to reduce them at maximum without losing the yield. So during my PhD, I was working on these bacteria, Pseudomonas syringae, for example, and this bacteria is considered a plant pathogen. So it has this fame because it affects lots of crops. As you can see here on the pictures, it affects kiwi, lemon, beans, apple. But if, for example, one way to do this integrating pest management would be to know where can we find this pathogen or this potential pathogen when it's not on the crop. So that's, for example, the case of what one of my supervisors did in 2007, Cindy Morris. She found out that this pathogen was actually present in high amounts in water. So maybe you were watering the plants with the pathogen that will kill them later. So we need to go a bit outside of the agrocentric idea. So the pathogens are not just a pathogen. They usually have other hosts, and then we can, we can find it in different ways. It can evolve with different hosts, and that's something that we should have in mind to know more about what are the requirements for the environment or the niche of that microbe in this case, and also like where to find it if it can be a source of contamination for a crop if it's next to it, for example. So this Pseudomonas syringae, for example, has been found in ice, on clouds, and also in wild plants where they are not creating any problem. They are not pathogenic for them. It's only for crops and under certain conditions. And we should have in mind the movement between these different hosts. And that was also the case for my PhD. So I was like looking for a new source of contamination, a possible source of contamination that we determined that it is not, because the amount that we could find on lichens was really low. But yeah, we find out that this bacteria could be found also on lichens. And that gave us a lot of information about what are the requirements, because lichens were before thought that they were too dry for these bacteria to live on them. But we find out that they can cope with that. So it's something to have in mind, that if you will have like some lichens next to a crop, maybe it could be a source of contamination, even though we, as I said, we don't think that is a threat because the amount is really low, and usually also they're found on cold habitats. Now, during my postdoc, I'm focused on this microbe that is called Phytophthora that maybe you have not heard about that name, but you probably heard about the Great Irish Famine. And unfortunately, even though the Great Irish Famine happened 200 years ago, we are still fighting against this microbe. So it causes several damages that cause like 6.7 billion losses annually in the yield. And in some countries, as Ethiopia, it can cost up to 70% of the yield. It goes really quickly, so in 10-15 days, it can completely destroy the canopy. And it affects, apart from potato, also like some related crops. For example, tomato is also really affected by this microbe. And nowadays, the way that is more common to use, to fight against this microbe when it's affecting a crop is the use of pesticides. But we have, like, for example, a biocontrol, so like a way to fight against this microbe in a environmentally friendly way, theoretically. This case is, for example, the Pithion oligandrum, which is actually approved by the European Union. And is this, you can see it here in blue, this Pithion oligandrum. And in gray, they are like the Phytophthora infestans, so the one from the Irish famine. And it coils around the pathogen, and it sucks the nutrients from them. So it's a mycoparasite. It's a really interesting organism because apart from being a mycoparasite or this pathogen, it's also a plant growth promoter. It is thought that it can be used when the plants are passing through stress to reduce the stress symptoms. And we also think that maybe it can be a replacement for the fertilizers. But then, like, why farmers are usually using the chemical pesticides, and then they are not using, for example, this biocontrol that is actually allowed to be used here in Europe? Well, the problem is that when the farmers use it in their crops, they find very different results. So sometimes it works, sometimes not, and that creates an uncertainty that they, of course, don't want to deal with. Within one of the cases or the problems or factors that can be the reason why this happened is because the soil that is used in the greenhouse or in the lab is very different of what you usually find on a farm of a potato. So usually, when we are working on the greenhouse, we use this compost that is like a really rich soil, but that's not the type of soil that you use when you want to grow potatoes. Actually, potatoes are usually grown in a really poor soil, because if you have like a good soil, you will plant something different that gives you more money probably. So of course, if we think that this is a biocontrol, so it's an alive organism, it will change a lot depending on the conditions, no? On the type of soil, the humidity that soil retains. So it's normal that they can find different results depending compared with what the studies said, no? With what it was done in the greenhouse. So, for example, one of the things I'm doing during my postdoc is to check the effectiveness of this biocontrol in different types of soil, so we can give an information to the farmers that is more accurate. And we can say, like, if you have this type of soil, we recommend you not to use this biocontrol because probably you will not get the effect that it was supposed to have. And also, as I said, like we are thinking about checking the fertilization possibilities with this biocontrol. As you know, fertilization, it started in 19th century, and it was used like guano from Chile, Peru, and also sodium nitrate, and it was helping to actually get higher yield, and that helps to reach the demands that was needed because the population was increasing. But over-fertilization is really bad for the environment. As you all know, it contaminates the groundwater, it produces more greenhouse gas emissions, and it can cause eutrophisation. But also is bad for the crop itself and for the quality of the crop. So it can produce an accumulation of the nitrogen on the different vegetables or fruits. It can also be lost by the runoff of the leaching, and it can like reduce the quality and therefore the grower profits. So, I mean, this is just like some random examples of how integrating pest management consists on knowing more about the crops, about how the pathogen works and what does it need, because normally I would say almost always a pathogen needs like certain conditions and a specific host. So we need to know more about all this information so we can create a better strategy, more individualized, because even though it's amazing the idea of like, okay, I have a product that is universal and I can always use it for every case, for every farmer in the world, the reality is that everything is much more complex than that. And we are destroying our soils. We are having more problems to reach the yields that we need because these soils are very poor nowadays, and we need to think in a smarter way how to fight against that, and how to reach higher yields without destroying the environment as we are doing now. So thank you very much.